pursuit for Juan Soto continues, and it seems like it's picking up day after day after day, as now we have brand new quotes and information coming from the legend, David Ortiz, about the Boston Red Sox and the young generational talent who they're looking to acquire this offseason. I'm here to break down all the bits and pieces right now on this episode of Red Sox Digest, but first remember, if you're a part of the 83% currently watching this video who are not currently subscribed, please scroll down, click the subscribe button. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers. We do appreciate all the love and support. You guys have been killing it as of late, so thank you guys for everything. But now let's get to it and break down how David Ortiz is doing his part for this Boston Red Sox organization. Now, if you've been following the game of baseball, or specifically just the Boston Red Sox organization, you know the name David Ortiz. There's no way around it. He's Big Papi. He's been in the league and associated with the league for some time now. And obviously when he was playing and he was active on the baseball diamond, statistically and just offensively, he was undoubted. There was no way around it. He was a freak. He was awesome to watch. But also, it wasn't just the statistical production he gave you. It was the aura. It was the character. It was the charisma, if you will, that he carried with himself in and out of the clubhouse, on the baseball diamond and out of it. It didn't matter where he was, what the situation was. He was always that high energy guy. He was always in the moment, having the best time that he could. And because of that, and because of where he comes from, being from the Dominican Republic, he has such a strong association and really just he has strong ties to all these younger players that seem to come from the same place. Vladdy Guerrero, Juan Soto, the list goes on and on. Those are obviously the two biggest names involved in the sport right now that obviously the Red Sox are also involved with. But now because of this and because of the connections with Juan Soto to the Boston Red Sox, we knew David Ortiz was going to be one of the biggest references, if you will, for this Red Sox team and really in trying to pull Juan Soto over to the Red Sox. And obviously it still is seeming and looking like a long shot compared to the markets in both New York, the New York Mets and the New York Yankees, and obviously the West Coast teams, and if the list goes on in hypotheticals. But again, if Juan Soto wanted to come and play for a team with a good story and to fit in like David Ortiz did, like Manny Ramirez, like Pedro Martinez, the list goes on and on, he could fit in with Boston, and that is what we're seeing a legend in David Ortiz come out and really echo to the young Juan Soto in an attempt to bring him to Boston. And again, shout out to Sean McAdam, who we're going to cite here, who cites a bunch of accurate quotes from David Ortiz from a previous podcast he was on, titling this David Ortiz on Red Sox Pursuit of Juan Soto, quoting, "perfect guide to build around." And that's the end of the quote. But again, let's get to it and break down some of the actual quotes from David Ortiz from this article. And it really does start with this, and this is the biggest thing. And I think this should mean a lot more to these Red Sox fans than just the idea that, hey, we actually went out and signed him, or hey, we're trying to sign him. If David Ortiz is saying this based off the previous years where we see Mookie walk and we see these other talents be missed out by this Boston Red Sox organization, seeing this from David Ortiz seems like he's very optimistic and he's very happy and pleased with what he's seeing from the Boston Red Sox organization. It's not a half-assed effort. They've made up their mind. Hey, if we make a strong push, we can go out and get this guy. And yes, he might not be a right-handed bat. He might not be the pitching we need the upgrade to actually upgrade. But there's only one of this guy. This is a generational talent. If we add him to the squad, regardless of what it looks like, we can build around him. And again, that is what David Ortiz is really echoing here with this quote when he goes on to say, "The way the team is trying to approach him, that is a good sign for me," said Ortiz, who appeared on the Fenway Rundown podcast. "The Red Sox wanted me to be at the meeting, but they let me know on short notice, and I was going through a situation with my dad. As you know, my dad's been a little sick. It's a situation we're dealing with, and I couldn't go." And again, this is a quote from David Ortiz, again, citing from the Fenway Rundown podcast that he appeared on recently, where he gave these answers and gave these quotes discussing the Juan Soto situation, discussing the trade, or discussing the possible signing of Juan Soto. And again, we brought this up in previous Juan Soto videos on this channel about how, hey, if we do, and if and when we have these extra meetings with Soto, because when we broke down the initial comments and quotes about how that first meeting went, it was labeled as the first of many meetings to come between Juan Soto and this Boston Red Sox organization specifically. And I mentioned in that video how There's no way that David Ortiz, Pedro Martinez, the list go like Manny Ramirez. You pick who you'd like to be at this meeting and to be involved, and whether they're in Red Sox jerseys or not, whether they want to be there for the entirety of the meeting or just for a portion of it, to be just to vocalize a moment, to make sure Juan Soto understands what he would then be accepted into, what group he would then be joining with this Boston Red Sox organization, being a Dominican Republic or a DR, a Dominican Republic born player. Again, I think it would mean a lot to him, and I think it would translate a long way. And we end up seeing David Ortiz go out and confirm some of these ideas, not only with that first quote, but with this one as well. As again, Sean McAdam goes on to quote Ortiz saying, "But they alerted me on that what was coming. Everybody's just trying to put the pieces together so we can sign Juan Soto. As you know, I'm very close with him and his family. The financial side of it, we all know that's part of it with the front office and team president Sam Kennedy, Craig Breslow, and John Henry, and the ones that deal with it. In my case, I want to let him know what a great organization we have and let him know about my life experience playing here with the Red Sox and how great it can be to be one of us." And again, that's the end of the quote from David Ortiz, discussing on really the message being sent to Juan Soto from David Ortiz and these other players that associate with David Ortiz that were playing with on the Red Sox, whether it be with or without Ortiz. Trendsetters like David Ortiz, someone that finds himself along the same path of David Ortiz, like a Juan Soto. And again, that there's not a lot of pieces that you can really say that for, because David Ortiz is David Ortiz. And again, Juan Soto is a generational talent. There's no real way around it. Now, before we get to this quote, I want to highlight this right here from Matthew Cora. He goes on to say, Sam Kennedy's interview with the Boston Globe was interrupted by a phone call from none other than Big Papi. Kennedy wouldn't comment on the nature of the phone call, but, quote, end quote, said, but he appeared quite pleased by the conversation. And that's the end of the quote again. But this is where David Ortiz quotes come into play, because David Ortiz was asked, what was that conversation about? Did you know you ended up interrupting an interview he was doing with the Boston Globe? That we knew you were the one that called. What was going on during that call? Where we heard this. During the recent owner meetings in New York, Kennedy paused in an interview to take a phone call from Ortiz, saying, and I quote, "The conversation was based on some of the things related to what we're chasing," end of quote, said Ortiz cryptically. And again, this is David Ortiz just being David Ortiz. Hey, I'm not going to tell you exactly what we're doing, but you and all and everyone else knows who's been following the Boston Red Sox, who knows who I am, who knows what the moving parts in this situation. You know exactly why I'm calling. You know exactly why I'm calling, and you know exactly what I want to hear. I might have timed it incorrectly. You might be standing in front of a bunch of people with a bunch of tape recorders and other voice recording products, but I'm here to ask these questions. And again, leave it to David Ortiz to live this type of way and ask these type of questions. Despite the situation Sam Kennedy finds himself in, I absolutely love David Ortiz and the fact that he did that. And I love the fact that he came out and gave us the answer we did. I know obviously the initial quote from Sam Kennedy seemed like we weren't going to get an answer because it's kind of not going to tell you it's confidential. It's behind closed doors, if you will. David Ortiz doesn't care. David Ortiz I'm not going to tell you directly we were talking about Juan Soto, and I was asking about how it went with Juan Soto, but, you know what we're talking about. There's no way around it. There's no way around it. There really isn't. Oh, we already cited this. The last thing I would love to quote really quick from Boston Strong on Twitter, David Ortiz on Juan Soto, and he goes on to say, and I quote, "I see him on the Red Sox. I really do, unless something else happens because other teams are trying to. Even myself, I'm doing my work with him." And that's the end of the quote. So again, David Ortiz has vocalized the fact that he's doing his part. There's no way around it. He's talking to him privately. He's talking to the Sam Kennedy, Craig Breslow, whoever it may be, Mr. Henry. It doesn't matter. He's talking to all of those pieces for the Red Sox organization behind closed doors. And he's doing it publicly on podcast, like we've cited all these quotes from on the Fenway Rundown podcast, like we're getting all these quotes from. This is David Ortiz being David Ortiz, and he's very blunt. There's no other way around it. And honestly, we should be thankful for it. Because of him being this vocal, we are getting answers to these questions about Juan Soto. Obviously, do we know the answer of what team he's going to sign to? Absolutely not. this is going to be a long process. It's going to be a multi-month process. Most likely, things happen, but again, most likely it could be over in 3 months, it could be over in 2 months. It's going to be a long, drawn-out process to see all of the possible options, all the possible really factors and benefits and pros and cons go with each team that Juan Soto could possibly sign with. Again, this is going to be make it to be very, very interesting, and I'm just very thankful to be able to say that David Ortiz is on the Boston Red Sox side of things, and because of that, I think that we may end up making a bigger push towards Juan Soto than anyone is giving us credit for. I just can't wait to see how it all plays out. But again, that'll be it for this episode of Red Sox Digest. Thank you guys for watching. And let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this entire situation and what David Ortiz is really doing and hoping to get Juan Soto in a Red Sox jersey. I'll see you guys on the next one.